After a long day of work, Surgeon Daniel was returning home, immersed in thoughts about a complicated case. On his way, a young girl approached him, offering a drawing she had made herself. Daniel bought the piece, not realizing that within it, he would find the answer to the question that had been troubling him. This story is about him, Dr. Daniel, a brilliant cardiologist and also a man with a unique journey in medicine. Dr. Daniel was known for his exceptional skill as a cardiologist. From the beginning of his career, he stood out not only for his technical competence but also for the sensitivity with which he treated his patients. To him, medicine was more than just science. It was an art of caring, a calling to bring comfort and hope to those who needed it most. Even with years of practice, he never became accustomed to the responsibility that came with each diagnosis and every decision. Each patient was unique, and each case carried the stories of entire lives and families. But that morning, something different awaited him. When Larissa entered his office, holding her son Julio's hand, the weight of hope in that mother's eyes was palpable. Larissa, with a trembling voice and a tight heart, told the story of Julio. Since birth, the boy had suffered from a severe congenital heart condition that limited his life in many ways. While other children ran in the parks and played soccer, Julio watched from a distance, with a smile that hid his sadness. Larissa dreamed of a future where her son could live fully, but reality was cruel. She explained that she had consulted several doctors before coming here. All of them had rejected Julio's surgery, claiming it was too risky. Dr. Daniel listened attentively, reviewing the exams and asking detailed questions. As he observed the results, his expression subtly changed, reflecting the gravity of the case. "I promise to review everything very carefully, Larissa," he said, trying to convey the calm that the situation demanded. "But I need some time to evaluate all the possibilities before giving a definitive answer." Larissa nodded, holding back tears. Before leaving, Julio, who had been quiet until then, pulled something out of his pocket. It was a drawing. "It's for you, doctor," the boy said, handing the paper with a shy smile. The doctor accepted the gift, somewhat surprised. The illustration showed a vibrant landscape, with trees, mountains, and a bird that stood out for its intricate details. It was a striking contrast to the simple lines of the rest of the drawing. When Larissa and Julio left, Dr. Daniel placed the paper on his desk and delved into the boy's exams. He knew the situation was critical. With each page he reviewed, the complexity of the case became more evident. He had faced challenges before, but something about this boy moved him in a different way. As night fell, Dr. Daniel sat in his armchair and looked at the drawing again. His eyes fixated on the bird, as if it carried a hidden message. With a sigh, he closed his eyes and offered a silent prayer. "God, guide me in this decision. Show me the right path to follow." He didn't know that the answer would come in such an unexpected way. The next afternoon, as he was walking home, a girl appeared in his path. She wore worn-out clothes and was holding a folded piece of paper. In a sweet voice, she asked, "Sir, would you buy my drawing?" Without understanding why, Dr. Daniel took some bills from his wallet and handed them to the girl. When he unfolded the paper, a chill ran down his spine. The drawing was almost identical to Julio's, the same bird with the same precise details. He looked around, but the girl had disappeared. Deep in his heart, he knew this was more than a coincidence. It was the sign he had asked for. The next day, upon returning to his office, he asked his secretary to contact Larissa. He was ready to take on the challenge. The surgery would be scheduled for the following week. When Larissa received the news, emotion overflowed. She knew the risks, but she felt there was finally a chance to save her son. Julio, although not fully understanding the gravity of the situation, seemed more excited than ever. The days leading up to the surgery were filled with preparations and prayers. Larissa, who had never been very religious, found solace in faith and the words of support from friends and family. Júlio, in turn, spent his time drawing. He created new landscapes but always included the bird he had given to Dr. Daniel. Finally, the day of the surgery arrived. Júlio lay in the hospital bed, holding his mother's hand. He seemed calm, as if he knew everything would be all right. Dr. Daniel entered the room with his immaculate white coat and a serene expression. "Are you ready, champ?" he asked, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. Júlio nodded with a shy smile. As the medical team prepared, something unusual happened. A bird landed on the windowsill of the operating room. It looked very much like the one in Júlio's drawings. Dr. Daniel watched the scene with a mix of surprise and comfort. To him, it was yet another sign that he was on the right path. The surgery was long and required all the skill and concentration of the medical team. Dr. Daniel, with his steady hands and focused mind, worked tirelessly to ensure every step was carried out with precision. Outside, Larissa waited with a tight heart. After hours of waiting, Dr. Daniel finally appeared in the waiting room. His smile lit up the space. "The surgery was a success," he said. "Júlio is doing well and will be taken to recovery." Larissa cried with relief, hugging the doctor in gratitude. Her dream of seeing her son healthy was closer than ever. The following days were marked by Júlio's surprising recovery. He seemed stronger and full of life. When he was finally discharged, he went back to drawing. But this time his landscapes were even more colorful and filled with joy. For Dr. Daniel, that experience was transformative. He realized that medicine was not just science, but also faith and humanity. Every patient that crossed his path brought a lesson, but Júlio and Larissa had left a special mark on his soul. Júlio's story became a symbol of hope for other families facing similar challenges. And for Dr. Daniel, it was proof that signs and miracles may be all around us, waiting to be seen by those who have eyes to perceive them. After the successful surgery, Júlio's recovery days were filled with ups and downs. At first, he seemed upbeat, but the first 48 hours were critical. Every fluctuation in his vital signs made Larissa's heart tighten. She spent the nights by Júlio's side, sitting in an uncomfortable chair, holding his small hand. She watched every movement, every beat on the monitor, as if her gaze could protect her son from any danger. One night, while Júlio slept deeply, Larissa looked out the hospital room window. The city seemed calm, the lights flickering in the distance. She remembered all the difficult moments they had been through. She remembered the day she received Júlio's diagnosis, the frustrating consultations with doctors who said there was no solution, and the nights she cried alone, trying to be strong in front of her son. But that night, something was different. For the first time in years, she felt hope. The faith that had begun to be reborn during her meetings with Dr. Daniel now felt like a flame burning inside her. As Larissa lost herself in her thoughts, the door to the room opened silently. It was Dr. Daniel. He had come to visit outside of his usual hours, something uncommon for him, but he felt the need to check on how Júlio was doing. "How is he asked, keeping his voice low so as not to wake the boy. "He's resting," Larissa replied with a tired smile. "And he seems to be improving every day." Dr. Daniel approached, reviewing the charts and checking the vital signs. He seemed satisfied. "Júlio is a fighter," he said, placing a comforting hand on Larissa's shoulder. "And you are too. It's not easy going through all of this." Larissa smiled, her eyes moist. "I would do anything for him. He is everything to me." In the days that followed, Dr. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about how that experience had impacted him. He mentally revisited every moment, from the first encounter with Júlio to the surgery. Something inside him had changed. One afternoon, while at home, he looked again at the drawings he had kept. The first one, given by Júlio, was still his favorite. He fixed his gaze on the bird, admiring the perfection of the details. Beside it, he placed the drawing he had bought from the mysterious girl. The resemblance between the two was striking, but at the same time, something in the drawings seemed to be more than just simple art. He felt that there was a greater message. The bird, to him, symbolized hope, rebirth, and the connection between the tangible and the spiritual. Inspired by this connection, he decided to share the story with his colleagues during a meeting at the hospital. It wasn't something he usually did, as he kept his professional life separate from his personal beliefs, but he felt that it was the right moment. "We all face difficult decisions in this profession," he began, holding both drawings in his hands. "And sometimes we need something beyond our training and experience to guide us. I want to share something that happened recently that changed the way I view my medical practice." He told the story of Julio and Larissa, the girl with the drawing, and the bird that appeared at the window. His colleagues listened in silence, some visibly moved. At the end, Dr. Daniel concluded, "It doesn't matter what we believe. I think we can all agree that hope and faith, in some way, play an important role in our lives and in what we do for our patients." The story resonated with his colleagues. Many began to share similar experiences, moments when they too felt that something beyond their understanding helped them make critical decisions. As the weeks went by, Julio began to show clear signs of recovery. He was more excited and full of energy, something Larissa hadn't seen in years. For the first time, he ran down the hospital corridor, laughing like a healthy, carefree child. "Look, Mom, I can run," he said, his eyes shining with happiness. Larissa, moved, watched her son, feeling a mixture of joy and gratitude. Dr. Daniel, who was walking down the corridor at that moment, stopped to watch the scene. He smiled, knowing that all the efforts had been worth it. "You made this possible," Larissa said to the doctor with tears in her eyes. "He made this possible," Dr. Daniel replied, pointing to Julio. "And you, for never giving up on him." The story of Julio and Dr. Daniel didn't end there. A few months later, Julio began attending school again. He made new friends and experienced things that once seemed impossible. His drawings became even more elaborate, and he even began to participate in school art competitions. One day, he brought home a trophy, the first of his life. Larissa hugged him tightly, feeling like the proudest mother in the world. Meanwhile, Dr. Daniel continued his medical practice, but with a new sense of purpose. He became an advocate for humanized treatments and began giving lectures on how empathy and faith can transform lives, both for patients and doctors. He also kept in touch with Larissa and Julio, following the boys' growth and achievements. For him, that case was not just another one in his career. It was a reminder of why he chose medicine in the first place. Years later, Julio wrote a letter to Dr. Daniel, now a young adult. In it, he thanked the doctor not only for saving his life but for believing in him when no one else did. "You were the bird that brought hope to me and my mother," the letter said. "And I hope to be a bird in the lives of others, spreading the same hope you gave me." Dr. Daniel kept the letter with care, along with the drawings that started it all. He knew that, no matter how challenging his profession was, moments like that made it all worthwhile. Looking out the window of his office, he saw a bird land on the sill. He smiled, feeling that, in some way, that story was still alive and always would be. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those you love. See you in the next chapter of this journey of life.